Where is the greatest risk of picking up an entity? An entity must have motivation. You are envious, you are vengeful, you are in a state of despair. So look at the 7 chakras and the 7 deadly sins. This is a very big clue. The largest number of entities is always found in monasteries, where there is abstinence from sexual relations, and in public places. Look at what is happening around us right now. There are a large number of possessed people in our world today, unfortunately, because the fundamental universal laws are not being followed, and because so many people are increasingly consumed by greed. Many believe in nothing, not in the Lord God, as they say, neither a candle to God nor a poker to the devil. Therefore, if you are depressed, as psychologists call it, and in fact it is despondency, then the possibility is great that it will come to you at any time, in a public place.
Interesting video. This is the specific video that merits a much more careful and detailed examination, primarily because it so seamlessly and deceptively intertwines absolutely real, factual statements with ones that are entirely fabricated and demonstrably false. It is presented with such a complex array of mixed elements that it becomes extraordinarily difficult to simply categorize or group the whole video together under one single definitive label.
So let's break it down into parts, and you can comment on each one.
Yes, that sounds like a great idea. Let's go ahead and watch it together. Right as we go, I'll carefully point out exactly what aligns with actual reality and what doesn't at all.
Where is the greatest risk of picking up an entity? The entity must have motivation.
Yes, the entity must have motivation, that's for sure. This is motivation to eat you. Accordingly, where can she eat you, in what processes? She eats you when you get emotional, when you are pouring out your consciousness. Accordingly, where is the essence most? Where people get emotional. Now let's listen to what she will suggest next. You
are envious, you are vengeful.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Absolutely right. When a person has these qualities, rejection of reality, rejection of the actual state of things, and these are exactly the qualities of this kind, they all lead you into an emotional state. That's true. But the emotion of joy also makes you food for inorganic beings. That's why at the circus, which some people don't laugh at, in essence, there's no less of it at the circus. So here the emphasis is specifically on the idea that there are bad emotions, and it's implied that good emotions are safe for you. Isn't that right? With good emotions, you also become food in exactly the same way. This nuance is important.
You are not located. That is, look at the 7 chakras and the 7 deadly sins.
So, 7 chakras, 7 deadly sins, that's probably it. We need to clarify with her what she was doing. This is already on her side. Clue. I will not delve deeply into that territory, because the actual truth is that there are significantly more than just 7 chakras. And as for deadly sin, essentially, there is only one. It is the rejection of reality, the refusal to accept reality. An energetic rejection of it, not just in words. Not in chatter, not in like or dislike, not on the physical level, but deeply on the level of the soul. If on the level of your soul you resist and do not accept reality as it is, if you block love as energy, not as an object of desire like I love something, but specifically as a state, then you start to have problems. That's why.
This is a truly massive clue indeed.
So what she just said, it is actually a bit... Maybe in her concepts it is considered to be enough. Because, for example, the first chakra, the first center, is primarily responsible for managing reflexes, for reproduction, for physical viability. Is it possible to create a bunch of problems for yourself on this level? Yes, it is. A reluctance to live, that's how you ruin things for yourself. The first center. The second is responsible for family relationships, close ones, your relatives. So primarily and mainly, the second center is about these specific types of energies. You can fall out completely. Yes, to the point of resentment, even hatred with your closest relatives. Yes, that's rejection of them, that's alienation. But they are just as much Mahadevas as you are. They're as much particles of the original as you are. You then reject yourself, essentially becoming a cancer cell in the organism. See, and these are not emotions. That's the point. These are not emotions. It's a more serious, deeper process. It's a process at the level of the heart, at the level of the soul. And emotions, they're not as catastrophic as mortal sins, so to speak.
All right, let's go through the centers. What is the third center responsible for?
The third center is predominantly responsible for various processes like manipulation, control, upbringing, training, and conditioning. In other words, it handles certain specific and essential functions. Stimuli for action, but in a rather strict form. With these energies, you can, for example, effectively train a dog. Furthermore, with these energies, you can successfully raise a very difficult teenager as one great option. I'm not saying that's the only way, but it's one possibility. So these are rather challenging and difficult energies for engaging and interacting with the world around us. These energies are very well developed, for example, in employees of the investigative committee. These energies are also highly developed in internal security service employees. In other words, these are people who have to get to the truth, who have to break another person's will. Accordingly, again, if you resist, if you oppose all of this, if you don't accept it, if you run away from it, well, yes, you'll end up with absolutely nothing. That's the problem with it. Because this is an integral part of human nature, it's an integral part of reality. The fourth is what is responsible for your very self, your personality, your ability to say, I am, I exist, I want, I have the right to want, I have goals, I have the right to achieve them, I have the right to live for myself, I have self-awareness, I have self-identification, I am ready to say I myself, that is Manio.
Is this the heart center? No.
This is the fourth center. We are not considering the heart at all for now. It is located much higher than the heart. Yes, it is mistakenly called the heart center, but that's a mistake. The heart is in the lower part of the chest, the center is in the upper part of the chest. It has nothing to do with the heart. This is your personality. This is your personality from the perspective that you are already an adult, that you are ready to take responsibility for yourself. Not for others, for yourself. Ready to exercise your free will. Not afraid of it, to act, ready to be independent, self-sufficient. That's what this is about. This is the fourth center. If a person is in such an infantile position, everything is done for me. I'm not myself, and I don't want anything at all. I won't do anything. Well, they're being fussy, but they're still a child. There will, of course, be questions about their fourth center. These energies will be suppressed. There will be a lot of spasms and tension there. That's why over time, a person is forced to become independent, forced to become self-reliant. Otherwise, they will simply stop their own development. The fourth center. And you shouldn't confuse it with the heart. It's an unrelated process. Yes, they are located in the same area, but they are responsible for different things. There is also an energy center in the heart, but it's a different one. The fifth center is primarily responsible for the essential ability to effectively convey your position and thoughts to other people. The innate capacity to speak, the ability to clearly formulate thoughts, the ability to speak in a way that is clear and easily understandable, the ability to maintain the thread of narration, and the ability not to be thrown off that narrative line. The fifth center is responsible for refined eloquence, for professional oratory, and for the sophisticated art of public speaking. It's not about how loudly you speak, but about how much people are energized by your conversation, by your speech, how much they listen to you, how much you capture their attention with your words. And of course, all of this is on the condition that you are able to convey your thoughts, that is, what you want to say. The fifth center. It becomes very damaged, for example, when a person starts to lie. When a person starts making up stories, when they immerse themselves in imaginary worlds, when they have complexes, a lot of different complexes. That is, when a person is insincere, when they invent things and know that they are making them up. Yes, you can make a mistake. That is, you can lie, but make a mistake. And say, oh, I was wrong, well, okay. But you can also know that you're lying and keep doing it. That's not the same thing. The sixth center is about information flows. It is the vast and profound realm of human intuition, the realm of deep insight and sudden revelations. It is the specific area responsible for our silent knowledge. Naturally, it gets completely destroyed by the constant barrage of overwhelming informational noise, endless information flows, and relentless informational filth. It simply shuts down and ceases to function. It crystallizes, spasms, and clamps up entirely. In most cases, if people regularly watch some disturbing and dark content, such as the daily news, on Channel 1 at 9 p.m., all sorts of questionable videos, that's how they atrophy their sixth center. That's it, you don't want to perceive this information, so you start blocking it. The sixth center often becomes obstructed by useless informational garbage. The seventh center is the center of creativity. It's the center through which knowledge comes, the center through which all creation truly happens. and through which some brilliant ideas and unconventional approaches come. In other words, it's the center responsible for manifestation and creation, for something new, something that wasn't here before. Well, naturally, laziness, naturally, debauchery, uncontrolled worldly passions obstruct and hinder the energy of the seventh center. That is, instead of directing your energy toward creation, you channel it into yet another excessive drinking binge, more parties, orgies, and that is where it ends. You can no longer use this energy for creation. You've spent it on pleasure. These processes effectively block and crystallize the vast internal space of the seventh centers.
And in your view, how do entities influence our centers? Do they have any influence at all? Not at all.
None?
Can they block them or connect to them? Connect to them or...
You are food for entities, they feed on you. They consume a certain type of energy. Within you, this energy is called consciousness. It's not in the centers, it's part of your body, the body of consciousness. And they feed on it, and it becomes especially tasty if you are emotional at that moment.
So positive emotions as well, of course.
No difference.
When you are feeling truly happy, that feeling of pleasure can also prove to be surprisingly dangerous.
And at the same time, look, you might say, so you have to be absolutely callous, completely unemotional. No. You can express feelings. There is a difference between feelings and emotions. It's incredibly difficult to explain this difference. But if you have extrasensory perception, if you have vision, you can simply see the difference between emotion and feeling. You can see when a person is being emotional, and you can see when they are genuinely expressing their feelings. So, what is the main difference? The thing is, when you are emotional, you tense up, you cramp up, and most people end up just exhausted, squeezed dry like a lemon. But feeling is where you ignite, and that fire has no limits. And
who else in our world, for example, among people, is susceptible and vulnerable to these beings? What states of ours maybe make us?
Well, you see, passionate people. All passionate people who can't balance their passions are already potentially at risk of being affected. Yes, we have absolutely no problem at all with passions if you can balance them, if you can control them, and if they don't completely define your entire life. If they are simply a part of your life, so for example, indulging in debauchery is not a problem, but only if it's not on a daily basis and for half your life. Like going out and throwing a party, drinking and having fun, why not? But again, if you do it, then stop, recover your body, restore your energy and your mind, and then go on living your life and doing your own things. In other words, if it doesn't destroy you regularly on a constant basis. So, passionate people, when do emotions arise? When something doesn't work out, when something goes wrong. Or on the contrary, when your mental tension is already so high. What do you need then? You need to somehow let it out. And sometimes you just need to laugh out loud, really laugh, because that's how you release your inner mental tension.
What is the nature of these entities anyway? In other words, where did they come from? Where do they come from? How do they come to us and connect to us? How does this happen? Listen.
This is an integral part of reality. It's the same thing. But where did kittens, puppies, and birds come from? Where did the worms in the ground come from?
So, is this just a normal, ordinary part of this world?
Yes. It's part of the world. Why are they inorganic beings? Because they don't have a physical body. They have energetic bodies. And that's why they live and thrive. Everything is fine with them.
And how does a person sense them? For example, in terms of emotions, what happens to a person mentally, physically? How does one feel it?
When a person is being eaten, they usually don't feel anything. He is in his righteous anger.
So he doesn't even realize it?
No, of course you won't. Well, you'll feel it later, when you wake up the next day and you have absolutely no energy at all for anything. Why was I so furious yesterday? So you feel the consequences of all this, but not at the moment when it's actually happening.
Can they somehow be ranked? For example, higher entities, lower ones?
Yes, of course.
How do they actually differ from each other?
When considering their unique abilities, their intense and fiery nature, their mobility, their complex value system, and the dimensions they live in. We, for example, are in the third dimension. There are entities that are entirely without physical bodies, existing in the fifth dimension. We could spend a long time, searching for the right words, but such a process does exist. This process does take place. And sometimes one being is from a completely different point in space and the universe than another being. And let's be honest, it's mostly entities that feed on us. Those that exist in the space of inorganic beings, that's the space of the second gate. I cover this in my course. I talk about the entry points into these spaces. We constantly carry these points on ourselves. That is, they are present in the configuration of our energy. It's just that no one talks about it. I do talk about it, and we have the chance, through these portals, these passages, to dive into these worlds and interact with them directly, if someone wants to.
Is it dangerous, maybe, or what?
Well, maybe it's dangerous, but so is going to your own bathroom. You could slip, fall, hit your head on the tiles, and that's it. But
With what kind of intention, for example, could someone go to interact with them? For what specific purpose?
people who are deeply entangled in these dark practices are constantly looking for allies. That is to say, they enter into a sinister agreement with these entities, a reciprocal exchange of favors. I let you feed on me, and in return, I will provide you with even more food in the form of other people who will eventually congregate and gather around me. And you will give me some kind of knowledge or abilities. It depends on what they agree on. So
tell me, is this like a deal with the devil?
no, it's a deal with non-organic entities. The likelihood that the devil will give you something is close to zero, because the very existence of the devil is questionable.
So what does a person give in return to this entity?
Their consciousness. They give their consciousness, and to some extent they pay with their freedom. You become dependent on all of this.
The largest number of entities is always found in monasteries.
Well, look, not all monasteries are the same. This is where it starts. A certain manipulation on her part. There are monasteries around which there is such a powerful field that not only can no entity approach, but not even every person can get close. And there are many welcoming churches that let in anyone with all sorts of personal problems, where people often get very emotional when they take Holy Communion, when they make their confessions, and when they sing all kinds of different songs. In other words, people truly get very emotional in those places. Yes, in such churches, non-organic entities feast. They have a banquet. But in such kingdoms, not only do non-organic entities feast, but also the egregore, the religious one. And the religious egregore, this is not a non-organic being like the ones we were just talking about. That is, it is a conglomerate of energy fields, of people. That is, people generate it, they create it. So in fact, it's like a child of humanity. It wasn't created by God, it was created by humans. And this egregore, it also feeds on people. Therefore, when it comes to traditional religious churches, if it's a formal religious church, if it belongs to some major world religion, then, most likely, there is an intense and constant competition between egregores that actively draw and harvest energy from people, and non-organic entities, which, in principle, are not really welcomed there at all. People who perform these rituals correctly, who properly maintain the sacred space, they hold it and thoroughly cleanse the entire environment, and they don't let those non-organic entities in. Yes, around churches this may exist, but inside, not in everyone by far. So, again, it's not all so clear-cut. And whether people let non-organic entities in or not depends on the abbot. It depends on how he oversees all of this. If he keeps a strict watch over it, making sure all rituals are observed and everything is done properly, a non-organic entity simply won't get in. It won't be able to. But if no one cares and people just get emotional and that's it, then so be it. In that case, yes, there are a bunch of them, Malayas and egregores, and other people who go there just to feed off others, energy vampires, and non-organic beings feed there as well. Well, it's just like a total free-for-all, basically.
So, for example, what other kinds of places could these be? The first thing that comes to mind for me is a cemetery or some place with a dark, some kind of...
Yes, cemeteries that aren't protected by knowledgeable people, let's say by those who know what they're doing. Because there are cemeteries, for example, that are attached to a church, and then there are cemeteries that are just out there somewhere. You take a local bus, get off, and there's a cemetery. Just a massive open field of it. Nightclubs, parties, sporting events, all different kinds of shows.
So these are highly emotional events, right?
Anywhere there's a large number of people expressing emotions. Everywhere.
Where does it happen?
So practicing abstinence. And what about this one?
Yes, from sexual activity.
Now that's really something completely different. Abstinence, meaning in places where there are hermitages, where people are practicing, they possess all the necessary tools to effectively protect the space from these inorganic beings. And, well, you know, it's like, if I happen to be there, then my neighbor and my acquaintance would also be present with me. If someone from the neighboring building decides to practice abstinence, well, probably, yes, we'll attract a lot of entities to you. But if it's a monastery, if that monastery has a knowledgeable person, a practitioner, a seer, someone skilled in rituals, then not only will no entity come there, even an outsider won't even approach that place. So no, absolutely not. Everything here is very situational, and not at all as clear-cut as it seems.
And how can a human being, I'm not sure if this is the right word to use here, safeguard themselves from such influences, from attachments, and from various external impacts?
By training? They must possess mastery, they must have knowledge, and in this way, they can protect themselves. You see, if I say, well, let's use an analogy. So let's say someone comes up, right, and asks. Let's imagine that I'm a boxer, a martial arts master. Someone comes up to me who has never fought anyone in their life and says to me, listen, all sorts of thugs in my neighborhood are bothering me. What should I do? How do I protect myself? I tell him, well, how? A left hook, a right hook, and that's it, you'll be on top. And he's like, oh, got it. Will I be able to do it? No, you have to train. You have to go to this class. Boxing, spend a year there, hitting the punching bag, training your muscles, working on your agility, taking part in sparring sessions. And then, after a year, at least a year, you'll go up to those troublemakers, right? And most likely, they won't even want to mess with you because you'll have hardened fists. You'll already have that look on your face, like, just give me a reason and I'll take all of you down right now. So you might look completely different. Even your eyes will light up when you see, oh, finally I can put my skills to use. And this scared, nervous attitude. Yeah, a boxer friend of mine once said, hook left, hook right, now I'll knock everyone out. Yeah, you're not going to knock anyone out. It's the same thing here. Either you have mastery, or you have skill, or you've been trained, and then they won't even dare approach you. Why would they want complications if they can just do everything simply? Like with your neighbor, they won't even try to mess with you. That's why when it comes to that monastery where people sit, practice and abstain, how would any entities even have the brains to get in there? They won't go in there.
But you can go in there. For example, you mentioned practices with gates, so you can enter there yourself, and I can go to them.
Yes, I can.
But they just can't get to you on their own anymore.
Yes, they can get to me, but they won't have anything to do with me at all. Why? I mean, they're not complete idiots. They understand. A person is aware, a person knows, a person sees. Why bother with someone like that when I can go and fool someone who's ready to get emotional?
So for a developed person, it's not dangerous. It turns out, but for someone undeveloped, he becomes vulnerable.
Of course. And so how do you protect yourself? Develop yourself. Develop your abilities, raise your level of mastery, master your energy. That's how you protect yourself. Only when you develop all of this, there will be nothing left to protect yourself from. Because you will look different. It's dangerous in
public places. Just take a look at what is happening around us now. There are a lot of possessed people, unfortunately.
Yes, that's true. Many people are susceptible to such influences. And when an entity identifies and targets its victim, it can regularly agitate and irritate a person's nerves so that they keep reacting emotionally. You can even directly see and feel how they add fuel to the fire at the very moment when you're about to get emotional, but haven't quite reached that point yet. They give these light little nudges, energetic ones, and that's it, and off you go. But if it weren't for those nudges, you'd just go, whatever, I don't want to do anything, and you'd calm down. So yes, they provoke you, but they provoke what you yourself have already started to do. It's impossible to just make you react emotionally out of nowhere, because
it is because universal laws are not being properly observed. Because people...
This means we need to play our trump card. What are these universal laws that aren't being followed? I get it, we don't follow human laws. We've come up with a whole wagon load of these laws for ourselves, and most of them aren't followed. That's true. But how can we not follow universal laws? Everything happens within the framework of regularity. Everything. Everything that happens here follows the rules and order of the universe. But the fact that you don't understand them, that's a different story. You can't break them. It's like, I don't know the laws of gravity, so I'm going to fly, while all of you who know the laws of gravity walk on the earth. That's about how it is? No. Everyone walks on the earth, both those who know and those who don't. It's the same here. Universal laws apply to everyone. And you follow them, even if you don't want to, because that's how this world works. You can go beyond these laws. Yes, it's possible. However, believe me when I say that if you were actually able to go far beyond these fundamental laws, you would possess such incredible abilities, profound skills, and heightened perceptions that you would likely have no need to watch this video anymore. In other words, you will clearly understand what boundaries you are crossing. But if these universal laws seem abstract to you, you still follow them, whether you like it or not. You can't not follow them. It's like the laws of physics.
The relentless thirst for profit has now completely taken over. Many people don't believe in anything, not even in God.
Again, people have been overtaken by the era of Kali. The era of Kali is the rhythm of the universe. The rhythms of the universe were created by Brahma, by God. That is, people are moving according to God's script. This is written in the books. I didn't make it up. People continue to follow this law. Now is the era of Kali, the era of degradation. What is happening to these people who have found themselves in this era, including myself and all of us, is written in books that are 5,000 or 6,000 years old. This has been passed down from generation to generation since another era. All of this was known because our God created such rhythms. It's the same thing. Are there any analogs to this? There are analogs to this. Winter, spring, summer, autumn. Here are some analogies. 4 seasons, 4 eras. Nobody is outraged. We just had winter. Nobody is outraged. Oh, why is everything here white and the leaves have fallen? He is indignant. Probably someone does not observe the universal laws. Yes, that's exactly it. A universal law. Winter has come. That's it. It's cold.
But everyone complains, but they can't do anything about it.
Well, these complaints, they're just for fun, really. People understand, well, it's winter outside, so what? They're not genuinely upset. They complain just because there's something they don't like. No, not that kind of silly outrage. We're bad, that's why winter came. That's the silly outrage I'm talking about. Well, there's a difference, yes, when you complain just because there's something you don't like, and when you complain because you think you did something wrong. But it's just the rhythm of the universe. In movies, they often like to show all sorts of Aboriginal people as if they're always upset about the rhythm and try to make sacrifices.
Many people don't believe in anything.
Sometimes it's better not to believe in anything than to believe in some nonsense.
And as they say, neither a candle to God nor a poker to the devil. So if you are struggling with a state of depression, as psychologists call it, though in reality it's despondency, there is a very high possibility of this occurring.
If you are in depression, but in reality it's just despondency. Well, still, if we use 2 different words, we imply that these are 2 different processes. A person can feel despondent, a person can be in depression, and in medicine these processes are actually separated and clearly described what the difference is between despondency and depression. Therefore, simply throwing out this distinction is also not quite correct, at least from the perspective of someone who claims to be telling the truth. Let's just erase the line between these 2 words and say they're the same thing.
But we always change the meaning of any word, essentially.
Yes, but if you're speaking to and addressing a large audience, if you want to tell them something to be helpful, why criticize and break down other systems?
There's a great opportunity to approach it in any way, in a public place.
Well, yes, in a public place you can pick up a non-organic entity, but again, only if you're in that place and you're emotional. Anton,
Thank you for your answers. Be sure to write your questions, share your impressions, leave comments. We'll be glad to hear from you.
95% of people don't even realize that within them lies a power that grants access to any possibility, a successful business, strong relationships, health, and self-fulfillment. It allows you to hear your soul and remember your true nature, your divine nature. This power is your energy. When it is blocked, you feel tired and upset. But when your energy flows freely and without obstacles, you are full of strength and capable of achieving any goal. Everyone can feel the movement of energy in their body. Are you ready to see this for yourself right now? I've prepared a practice where, in just 3 minutes, you'll become aware of the state of your energy and be able to activate the inner power that has been blocked for many years. The practice is available for a limited time. Right now, follow the link provided below the video and unlock the incredible source of power within yourself.